Hello, welcome to Newfoundland Lens. This is episode number 7. My name is Michael Winsor, and the co-host here is Corey Babsock.
You doing?
And today we're going to be chatting about what you should bring to Newfoundland. So, when you're planning on coming on a trip to Newfoundland, what are the things you should have as a photographer, like what lenses and cameras and stuff? And then when it comes to other things like rain gear and all that, we're going to chit chat about that here during this podcast. Any suggestions there, Corey? Let's get
Y
things rolling.
yeah, so, outside of the photography stuff, bring a good appetite and dancing shoes. But, definitely a good appetite. You have lots of opportunity to visit a lot of places to serve up some really good, local cuisine.
It's the seafood.
Yeah, but few feeds of fish and chips on the go and a chowder here and there, but important to anywhere you go to make sure you do your research and know what it is you need to take with you from a clothing standpoint. We'll go into more detail on everything on that now shortly.
Yeah. So let's talk about camera gear first. When you're coming, what you should bring. So first, if you're coming for puffins, we'll just go over about what kind of information and what you should have for puffins itself. So if you do have one of the new mirrorless cameras or anything, automatic focus and even eye detection and stuff, then that's always recommended because it makes
Mhm.
birds and stuff a lot easier.
Yeah, a game changer too, because I was shooting for many years without that, and just this past June, of course, getting the R5, having the eye detection and the autofocus and the tracking. I don't know how I was managing getting any kind of good shots before. I tell you, when you've got all that those options in front of you, if you can any way to swing it to have that available to you, but yeah, absolutely.
Mm. That and puffins, for anyone that shoots birds in flight, are one of the hardest because they zigzag up and down and they're fast as
Sure.
anything.
Yeah,
So,
they're like, I call them fat hummingbirds. Their wings don't stop very much when they're flying.
I think it's 140 beats a second,
Yeah.
and they're not a really good flyers at all.
Oh,
Uh,
good swimmers.
they're good
Yeah.
swimmers.
So, how about a lens, Michael? What would you suggest for people to bring for lenses for puffins?
Something long is the safest, just if you want to get like a nice close portrait shot sort of thing.
Mhm.
Now, as you know, sometimes they'll come over and they'll pick at your boot if you're laid down and you're not moving. They'll come over to you. But the safest is if you got something like 500, 600 millimeter.
Yeah.
It could be zoom or prime.
Yeah, I've been in situations out there, where I just had my 150 to 600, and they were, as like you said, dancing on your shoes. It was too close.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I switched over to, I've done perfect shots of puffins out there close up with just a nifty 50, but you really do need to have something with some reach in it,
yeah,
just in case you stay over on the colony side.
yeah. Because even if you had it with a wide angle, you could get a funny shot. Sometimes, like you
Yeah,
said, he comes right over, something unique.
yeah,
But of course, when it comes to that, I would definitely bring a longer lens
yeah,
if you have it for sure. And even when you're out there too, when they're not doing anything, there's always a nice landscape around that you
beautiful.
can shoot.
The one thing I always tell my guests, like, they'll say, "What lens do we need to take out there with it?" And I'll say, "Well, you're gonna want your long lens," but I take a variety because we've been out there and the whales have been just offshore, or it's been a beautiful sunrise, or sunset coming in. You wanna get that shot in there as well. But
Yeah.
the number one, to just go back to it again, though, is something with a bit of reach.
Yeah. So that's the lenses and stuff for the puffins. The whales is kind of similar when it comes to lenses and things. The only thing is you don't need 600. You
No.
got something around the 200 to 300 is lots.
Mhm.
And a zoom is a lot better than a prime because you don't know where the whale is going to jump.
Yeah.
And you don't have a 300 and it jumps at 100 and you get half a whale.
I used to shoot with the 70 to 200 quite a bit for whale, and found that was sufficient, but last season, I was doing most of my shooting with just the 24 to 105
Mm.
and was getting really, really good stuff. And it's versatile too, because like you said, you don't know where they're gonna jump. That again, we talked about it in the whale, episode we did. If you want to capture something else in screen, like those 2 that came at once, if I didn't slam back that to 24, I would
Yeah,
never have gotten those, right? And it
the
would have been a
double
shame.
breach.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been a
That's
shame
pretty
to
cool.
miss it.
Last year I was using mostly the 100 to 500. I
Yeah.
never go to 500, but usually under 1 to 3. But even then, if you need a little bit of attention, you can go out there to 500.
The other thing to keep in mind too when you're, with whales, if you're on in the Zodiac, is that, trying to sling around a 150 to 600 out there on that boat can be a bit taxing
Oh,
sometimes, but, it's better to if you have something that's a little bit smaller and easier, more compact, that's the way I would go.
yeah. It's not like being on a smooth, you know, piece of pavement or anything. You're out there, you're
You're not
kind of
shooting from
bouncing
shore.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you definitely, like I said, when it comes to the lenses, if you got a bad arm, bad back, that you'll need something lighter. Lighter is usually better.
Being out in the Zodiac and having the lenses and that too, something we recommend people bring with them is a waterproof bag or a camera bag or something to have on the Zodiac to protect your now, myself and I think, Michael, you do the same thing. We're all hardened people at this now. I usually just take the camera, shoves it inside the survival suit till I'm ready to come up for a shot.
Yeah,
But we do recommend that you take some kind of a waterproof camera bag or something out
yeah.
there.
If you're taking more than just what you kind of need, like a lot of people like a dry bag or something
Yeah.
is a good thing to use. Sometimes I bring an extra body just in case if the well comes really close. So
Yeah.
then if I shoot wide, if it comes really close to us, and usually I'll put that in a dry bag. Most of the time I don't use it, but never knows when you don't have it is when you'll need it.
That's a good habit. If you do have the extra body on hand to do that, just pre-mount a wide or something to have on hand. Just you're not
Yeah.
shagging around trying to change lenses out during the boat.
Another thing too is when we're out there in the Zodiac, well, we go around a lot of nice, cool cliffs and
Yeah.
landscapes and stuff. So if you got something a bit wide, rather than trying to change it in the ocean, which could be challenging depending on the conditions.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Yeah, yeah. So with actual lenses, like I said, we said 300 millimeter and something with a bit of zoom, so you got more flexibility. So you don't know where they're going to pop up to. And camera, same thing. If you got something with, something out of focus, well, they all pretty much got out of focus
Yeah,
now.
they all do.
And even though the eye of the whale don't usually pick up, but it picks up the whale pretty fast, the eye detection do.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. So that's the whales. So shooting icebergs. Icebergs is, I find, everything you need for lenses.
Yeah, and it totally depends on where you're shooting from as well, right? Because
Right.
we've shot a lot of icebergs from the boat, but from shore, you're if you have an opportunity, set up a tripod and do a good shot with a long lens, so you get that flattens the scene for you a bit. Speaking of icebergs, and I just want to mention this now because I forgot to mention earlier that one that's out in we do have an iceberg here in Newfoundland now, which is fairly
Right.
early, and it's been hanging around out there in Twillingate for a couple of weeks now, and I've seen some pretty good shots coming out of there in the last few weeks. Using a variety of lenses. I know I've seen people using the a longer lens because you can tell because the scene is flattened, and that's something that if you have the opportunity to use, makes for a very powerful shot, right?
Yeah, it was early, like I say, for the icebergs. Hopefully that's a good sign. And
Yep.
I saw the ice reports and icebergs, and it seemed like there's a lot coming down the coast from Labrador. So that's always good news.
Looks like a lot of pack ice coming down, and usually, as the old fellas say, if there's a lot of pack ice, there's usually a lot of icebergs, so
So when you're out in the Zodiac for the lenses, I find, again, if you have, the 100 to 500, 24 to 105, all that depends on how close and far you get and how big the iceberg is.
right.
But if you're shooting from land, that's kind of similar as well because if you watch the iceberg, then you're going to zoom it in at 500 or 600 millimeters.
Yep.
But if you are taking more of the environment kind of shot, so you got like maybe a house in front of it, or if there's a lighthouse or something next to it, or if you want something in the foreground, background, you're going to need a wider angle.
Yep.
So for me, the best pictures anyway is
Yeah.
if you use an ND filter around the water.
Right.
Is
Where grounded or not moving a lot, that iceberg remains super crisp, but you get that movement around the water. It's fantastic.
yeah. So like Corey's saying, if the iceberg is really stable, then your iceberg will be sharp. If not, it's just going to move in the same as the
Yeah,
ocean.
pick up the
And it'll
movement,
be,
yeah.
it'll
But
be a
that's the
blurry.
challenge, that's the fun of it, right? That's what you love about icebergs. Everyone's different and
Yeah,
gives you a chance to play around with some different things.
yeah. And if you photograph it in 4 different locations, it looks like 4 different icebergs.
100%, yeah. And then I really enjoy the, environmental type photo or having the full iceberg in the photo, but it's nice to zoom in sometimes on those details, like those blue veins that are in the icebergs or
Yeah,
all the cracks or whatever, and just have
yeah,
from a textural standpoint in a
yeah.
photograph, right?
Even the dimples and stuff that you get from the water washing over them. Yeah,
And
I'm looking forward to seeing some icebergs. So I think I
one
actually
thing
last
one
year.
One thing we haven't talked about when it comes to shooting icebergs that I did a lot last year, and I hope to do a lot again this year, is using a drone to shoot the icebergs. You get some really fantastic footage with a drone as well.
Yeah. I highly recommend that's what I use my drone most for is that when there's iceberg around. You just because when you're above and you're looking down, you'll get to see what is under for the iceberg wise. Like usually
Right.
is you get all the green in the water and it looks pretty magical.
And sometimes there's hidden treasures you would never have seen from shore because they're hollowed out in the center, and you see that nice green pool right in the center of the iceberg that you would never have seen if you were just shooting it from land or from a boat,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, drone, highly recommend it.
So drones, you can use them in Newfoundland, same as in Canada, but just check the website and if you know when it comes to where to go and stuff, just make sure you're following the rules like we do.
Right.
And usually when you're out in a place that's in the airport and there's no airports around, so you're a bit safe there. But just
100%. There's no reason not to, like you said, here, especially right around the bay in Newfoundland, there's no reason not to follow the rules and operate safely.
a lot of the parks don't allow it, but
Right.
there's a lot of places that we can go that you don't need to get permission and all that stuff, no parks or nothing. So I think that's pretty good on the icebergs
Mhm.
for what we bring. The next thing would be what we would use as landscapes or seascapes. Yeah, so but now if you're looking for more of a wide kind of like we go some places where there's really nice seascapes and stuff,
Yeah.
and you'll need something a little bit wider. It's like 24 105 kind of millimeter range, and ND filters
Yep.
definitely. If you don't know how to use them, we'll show you when you come as well.
Absolutely.
But I really like it with the motion. It really adds picture to more of a fine art picture.
So a lot of people traveling in, Michael, might have limited space when it comes to packing in, their full kit or whatever. So what would you recommend you have? Like for to capture everything, you want to have one long lens, at least one long lens, a wide angle, and probably utility lens like the 24 to 105.
If I was coming, I was only say I only like bring two lenses.
Yeah.
If you're a Canon shooter, most people would have the 24 105,
Yep.
so that's definitely I recommend. And if you have the 100 to 500, it's just the only
Yep.
really two lenses you need. That and camera body, and two would be
Yep.
bonus. But if you don't, then that's pretty much all you need. And ND filters and tripod. But
Yeah. Yeah. No. So you don't need to come with 50 different lenses as
no.
much as you might like to.
Well, it depends on the individual too. Like if people like macro for some reason, there's lots of nice flowers and stuff
Mm.
along the way when we're going that you might want to take. So again, if you do have any interest, just contact us and we'd be more than happy to let you know what.
That's that's like me. I don't go anywhere without my 10 to 22 in my kit because that's something I like to shoot. It's wider than most people would probably like to shoot with, but everybody got
Yeah.
their preferences.
I usually, like I said, my 24 105 and my 100 to 500 pretty much covers everything that I really shoot. It makes my bag lighter too. I mean, Corey was talking about earlier is that if you do sign up and come with Newfoundland Photo Tours, we actually do send you a little document, I guess, package,
And
uh,
FAQ.
info package,
Yeah.
and it got a list of all the things that you should bring and all that stuff as well. But just quickly, just kind of looking over some of the stuff here. So yeah, so camera bodies, we chatted about that, and if you do have a lens rain cover,
Yeah.
you should bring it. You don't need the big expensive ones. Just there's cheaper ones you can get for like $10 that does the same trick.
Ziploc bag.
If you got one of the big ones, that works too.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's raining, but saying that, unless it's really pouring, like I have my camera out there and lenses, probably not a good idea, but they are water resistant, and a nice bit of water used to be coming down, and I'm just shooting away, and the camera's on.
Yes. It's not something I've never used the rain cover for lens. I tried it. I got one and put it on, and within 5 minutes of it being on, I had it off again. I didn't like it.
Yeah. That I think a couple years ago, I was out there, and it was pouring rain, and I wanna get the rain falling on the puffin with the little droplets.
Right.
So I used it that time, but I think that's probably the only time I use it as well. So lens extenders, if you have any of those, if you want to put one of them in the bag. Sometimes we go out and shooting in the night or early in the morning, so if you have a headlamp or flashlight, but we definitely recommend headlamps because then
Yep.
your hands are free.
Yep.
And if you don't have a built-in shutter release for longer exposures, then you could always use one of them, but most of the newer cameras now that's built in.
Yeah.
Uh, and make sure he brings your media cards, of course, and batteries and battery chargers, and like camera bag, tripods, and any attachments to the tripods.
Cables, any cables that you
Yeah. And usually when I go, I usually bring my laptop to review my pictures when I'm traveling somewhere, so that kind of see what you got and get excited
Right.
about.
Yeah, it
Yeah. And a lens cloth, I use those to clean my lenses and stuff.
yep,
And sometimes you'll get some spray back, like salt water. But usually after, we'll just get like a warm cloth and just kind of wipe it out, wipe the salt
right.
off the lens.
Good idea.
Besides that, I find there's no problem at all.
One of the, tours that we do with the Discovery tours at Bonavista, Vista, Bob's Cannon. I mean, he take that one, he throw down the bottom of the Zodiac, right? Waves coming up over everything all the time, and it still works like a top, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't see Bob taking a warm cloth to that camera.
No,
He's at the end of the day, but
a
it
few, uh, a
always
few,
cracks me up, like I said, you don't need a lot of fancy equipment to get the great shots, you just need to be out there at the right time in the right place, because Bob's got a lot of really good shots with that camera, but the poor camera
uh,
doesn't see a lot of love.
yeah. A few years ago, he contacted me. He was looking for a camera, so I recommended. I think not a Rebel. It might be a somewhere around there, a TI or something, and he got a
Yeah,
300 millimeter lens. So that's what he uses, and he's out there, like I said, out there. But he got it down pat now because he knows pretty much when the wells is breaching, he can
yep,
pretty much tell, just like anyone would if you're out there that many times. But like you said, when the well is jumping, or if he's got to move fast, he just takes the camera and throws it down in the bottom of the boat, pretty much,
yeah,
and the water splashing over, and all of a sudden you realize and look down, and it's all full of salt water, and
his
oh,
camera swamped and
yeah. Uh, and then sees the when he sees the whale and he thinks he's gonna breach, he'll grab his camera and just take his sweater and just wipe off the top of it and see if it still works.
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's hilarious. But it's a good point too. When you're again, we've talked a little bit of this in the whale thing too. Keep your eye on Bob, right? Like when Bob is reaching for his camera, that's when you know you have to focus your camera, because
Yeah,
he knows exactly when it's coming. If he's bringing his camera up, something's going to happen.
yeah, that's good. But those cameras could take a lot of beating, still work.
Oh yeah,
So what to wear? Uh, layers and layers and more layers, basically,
yep.
because it could be really warm, and then if the fog comes in, it's really cold, or vice versa. It's
In 5 minutes,
yes,
it can change
absolutely.
this. I remember not last season, season before, we had a couple from Texas who came up, and they were like, "We came up here to escape the heat, but it was hotter here in Newfoundland in July than it was in Texas when they got here." You know, they
Yeah,
came with, like, puffer jackets and wool caps and mitts and everything, and that was it. They had to go to Walmart and buy shorts.
yeah. Well, like you said, in the morning, you could have shorts on, and by the evening, you could have a coat and a hat
Like,
to keep you warm.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
that's
changes.
it. If I'm gonna recommend one piece of clothing to bring with you, well, 2 actually, but one for sure, is a really good warm cap, because out on that Zodiac, even it could be like 23, 24 degrees in, shore, and you get out in the Zodiac, and it feels like -20 because
Yeah,
of the spray and everything coming back on you. So you wanna have a good, heavy, warm, cozy cap.
yeah. And your body is warm because you wear those survival suits. They're
Yep,
really nice and toasty. Well, for your head for sure, and a pair of small gloves
yep,
to keep your fingers warm.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And I find, well, rain gear, so if it's raining, you don't have to stay inside. But I find rain pants, even when it's not raining, when I'm out there with the puffins, if I'm sitting on the ground a lot or moving
Yep.
around. So sometimes the grass might be a little bit damp. I wears rain pants a lot.
Now I mentioned to you before we started the pod that when I was out this past summer, I saw a couple of people using the yoga mats, uh,
Okay.
taking a rolled up yoga mat and putting it down and kneeling down or sitting down on it.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little bit extra cushioning and waterproof and lightweight. If you're around and you don't have
Yeah.
rain pants,
Yeah.
$2 at Walmart and buy yourself a
Right.
cheap yoga mat to keep you dry when you're out on
Yeah.
site.
And if you want a break from taking pictures, you can do yoga.
For dog.
Downward puffin.
Yeah.
The hiking boots, you don't really need anything really hiking, but if you got something water resistant, like
Yeah.
I wear morels and they're water resistant.
Yeah.
And I find them good because sometimes you're walking through the grass Even if it's short grass, you get your feet wet, and then it's uncomfortable,
Right.
right? But you don't need no big old hikers and nothing like that.
Most strenuous hike we're gonna do is probably Cape St. Mary's, which is not that bad, right?
Yeah, it's kinda long, but it's not no, like, really big
No.
inclines and such. The other thing is just meals. When you come here, we have a lot of different options for people with, different dietary needs. As Corey, you would know for sure because I know you had some one group, you had a lot of people with different needs.
I had 3 people with 3 different dietary needs. One couldn't eat seafood, one couldn't eat dairy, and one had celiac. That was an interesting few days trying to wrangle food, but we did it. I mean, this
Yeah,
is we always found a viable option for everybody. Might not have been the most appetizing in some places, but nobody went home hungry. Uh,
yeah,
well, that's one thing that, if you're traveling and you have some kind of a special diet that you would need, I highly recommend, doing a little bit of research on your end before you come to, just to see what get online and see what's available for your dietary needs and let us know because we
and
need to have some energy.
yeah, and we'll usually check the restaurants and all that stuff to make sure sort of thing.
Yeah, most restaurants now have some kind of a gluten friendly option. Not all, but most. And like I said, we've always worked around. It's never been a deal breaker, so to speak.
Yeah,
We've always managed to find something.
and if you like seafood, then there's seafood.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so anyone comes if you got any different medications, we do have a lot of drugstores and stuff here and
Yep.
stuff that, if you need something, we have, you know, medication same as wherever you're coming from, basically.
Yep.
Of course, if you're coming, I would recommend find out how much you need and bring it with you rather than spending time trying to make sure you got to.
Yes.
But if you had to lose it or something other than bad had happened, then, we can make arrangements to make sure that
Yeah.
people get their medication that they would need.
Uh,
So there's lots of accommodations on the island. We have, well, bed and breakfast and hotels and all that good stuff.
Yep.
We stay with a lot of places really,
Yep.
but, a lot of people usually find those places good and, try to get to places where the breakfast is included as well, so it
Yeah.
takes the little bit of the burden off.
Exactly.
Transportation, of course, if you're coming from the airport, if you need us to pick us up, sometimes we might be on tour, but we can arrange it. But if not, we do have taxi cabs.
And Uber now.
We do have Uber, and when you're with us, we drive around either if it's a small group as a Honda Pilot
Hmm.
or the small, more ones, and we have a 15 passenger transit Ford van as well. So for our bigger tours, that we
Yep.
have that, we're all kind of together and having a good time.
Yeah.
And what else is there, Corey?
Well, it's the big thing takeaway, Michael, if you're coming and staying with us is, don't be afraid to ask questions beyond what's in the information sheet. If there's anything there that you're not clear on, reach out. Myself or Michael will be more than happy to help you out. And if you get here and there's something that you forgot, let us know that you forgot it. We'll do our very best to make sure that we can get a replacement for you here so it doesn't impact your trip. You're here for a trip. We want to make sure you have the best time possible. We'll make sure we make that happen for you.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple of questions. Let's quickly ask questions. As people ask what airport you're coming into, St. John's, like 95%. In
Yep.
the fall, sometimes they do the West Coast, and you could go into Deer Lake, and we could pick you up from Deer Lake Airport. But most of the time, it's St. John's Airport for sure.
One of the things, when people come here, a lot of times they're here for the photography, but you're also here for the experience of the province. A lot of times people's first time here. And what I really enjoyed these past couple of seasons, and it's nothing that you got to take with you, but it's something that you're going to see when you're here, is we go to a place down in Bonavista that has live music, local music throughout the summer. And I joked at the beginning of it, bring your dancing shoes. And I was only half joking because I have had clients in the past get up and have a little scuff when the music is on. So yeah, you might want to actually bring those dancing shoes. So we'll give you an opportunity to get up and get out if you want to.
For sure. A couple of most common questions is, when's the best time to come see whales, puffins, and icebergs? I know we kind of mentioned it before, but just briefly or quickly, if you're coming for whales, usually find the end of June to mid-August. That's when they're here, and
Yeah.
usually July is the busiest
For whales, yeah.
for whales. Yeah, and puffins they usually show up around the end of May and are here
Yep.
till probably like early September.
I was down on May 18th and they were here.
Yeah. and yeah, like the beginning of September as well, usually.
Yeah.
But again, July is the busiest. And for icebergs, if you're coming, they could show up in February, like now, but
Yeah.
usually they don't show up until like April, usually. And May is probably the best time, and early June.
Yeah, the icebergs and the puffins usually come in round about the same time. It might be a week or 2 to either side, but the icebergs, I tell you, very exciting. A lot of people are very excited.
Kind
And
of
a
feel
little you talk about the impact that a little like, just an iceberg showing up has on a community. I was talking to somebody out there about, places to stay out in 28, and it was hard to get a place to stay out there because everybody was going out to look at the icebergs. Fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
what a boon in February.
Yeah, like I said, it's great. We all like our visitors, either as puffins, whales, or icebergs for sure.
Yeah,
Good for photographers.
absolutely.
Yeah. So if anyone, like I said, is coming, like Corey just mentioned, any questions, reach out. This is the most common things that people ask about what
Yeah,
to bring. But other than that, if you can travel light, then you can. There's usually lots of space and stuff too when it comes to. Well, we have lots of space in our vehicles because we got to make
yeah,
sure we have lots of room for your clothing and luggage, and then plus your camera gear. So no matter what, you'll have space with us.
yeah.
Well, the biggest thing is the airplane.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And if you do come with us and you got a tour, I would recommend come a day before because with the delays of airplanes and flight delays, it's just as a pain.
Most people bring their camera gear as their carry-on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You don't want your camera gear down the bottom being
No,
thrown around.
no. No, you wanna make sure your camera gear actually gets to where you're going.
Yeah.
It's not so bad if your underwear don't show up. Even
For sure.
yeah. Yeah, so like Michael said, this is episode number 7. We're hoping to do what, Michael, another 2 or 3 episodes before we wrap up for the season?
Try to get 10.
And so you'll find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I listen to it on Spotify, but Apple will have it, various other podcast sources. And of course, on YouTube, you get to look at our lovely mugs while we're doing our little chat here. And you can certainly check us out there anytime at all. All of our old podcasts, if you haven't listened to them yet, they're all available on the different platforms and on YouTube to have a listen to as well.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks there, Corey. And as we always say, thanks for listening and keep your eyes on the horizon and your heart in Newfoundland.
See you next time.